Speaking of metal and stuff, I remember I had the city. I was going to build it, and wood and signs had been made out of wood or stone um, for a long time. Actually, I had problems with signs disappearing and also stone disappearing. People kept taking down my signs and using them for other things like fireplaces. I was like, whatever, just keep carving them. Fine, whatever. Like, you can buy the wood. Well, they can steal the signs. Oh, fine. Anyway, I always had a problem with people stealing my signs or stealing my stuff. Like, I'd put up a town, right? And I'd put signposts on every street corner and stuff. And this only really became a problem when, see, metal was valuable. So I had this one town, and I wanted it to be really nice, so I put up metal signs. The first ever metal signs. Anyway, needless to say, for about 3 years, they stole the signs. Local villagers would just come in and rip off the signs and take them. And then they would fashion knives and stuff out of the signs, and then they would go and chop grass or chop trees using the metal from the signs. 3 years. I was just like, just keep replacing them. Don't bother me. Because I was like, well, what are they doing with the signs? And I think somebody found out, and they were just taking the signs, and they would cut the signs into pieces, and then they would go and they would cut grass and chop trees down using the metal from the signs. So this happened a long time ago. Anyway, and I being the person I am, minor and all that stuff, I was like, just replace the signs. It doesn't matter. I mean, just we'll just have to make an easier way of replacing the signs. So anyway, but yeah, for about 3 years, I had this town which I was trying to do metal signs on, and the locals kept stealing the signs and then making knives out of them. And then they would go out and they would chop down trees or, do things that they had to do. And I was like, well, and I think that might have been when I always offered knives, I think, but metal knives were rather rare. And my signs just happened to be that thickness where you could cut them into pieces that would basically be, I think they were rather thick signs. They're like this. I forget. It was so long ago. I forget. But I do remember how I was trying to do the city with metal signs, and the signs kept getting stolen. And people came to me and were like, blah, 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 blah. It's always blah, blah, blah. And I was like, they're just using it to go and build and cut grass and live. And I almost got mad at them because I was like, they're just taking the signs to use to survive. What the fuck? Because I mean, I was like, it's like, we're surviving. We're doing this. And what the fuck, if I can't replace a couple signs, then who am I? So I got really mad at the person, actually. And in the end, it ended up being a nothing thing because I was like, we'll just replace the signs. I got a factory, mass production. So they stamped out signs for a couple years, and people would just put up the signs, and then the little villagers. But, I mean, come on, I'm Lucifer. I mean, what's the big deal? I thought it was, I was like, whatever. They talked about going and arresting them or going. I was like, that's just going to cause a problem. Don't worry about it. Just replace the signs. So this one city, I forget which city it was. I wish I could know. It was, I think it was maybe in Russia or maybe India. I don't know, but for a while there's all these signs, and the villagers kept taking them to use the metal. They were just making knives, like I say, and just cutting down trees and just trying to live like everybody else. And I think when I got mad at one of my subordinates, which could have been Rick Bush, I was like, they're just trying to live like everybody else. And I got mad at him, and I was like, I mean, because at the time I was like, I have the advantage of having huge steam engines and shovels and aircraft. And I got really mad. I think it ended up being a nothing thing, actually, and where I didn't have to really lay into him. But basically, I got mad at him because I was like, we have the advantage of all this high-tech stuff. Those people don't. I was always one of those people that where I was like, look, they're just trying to live. You know, they just want to survive. And so, anyway, it was long, long ago past, and probably barely even happened because it ended up being a nothing thing. Because it might have been when we were still doing the big old thing when metal was kind of hard to get, because you know you had to use a big ram to ram into a hillside or a rock side to actually break the rock, you know, before explosives. And then we started pounding into the rock using the steam engines and stuff. And then we found other ways of rotary action on the rock. And eventually I had a whole team which just got so good at mining that they was just like, build a mine. It's like, done. And then explosives and stuff. You know, a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. Yeah, but it was something that was part of my existence where I was trying to do the city with metal signs, and they kept getting stolen. And really, in the end, I was just laughing about it because it was like, I mean, it was almost cute because, I mean, you know, I mean, I have smelteries. You know, I had 4 different smelteries, foundries. I had 6, 7, 30 mines, or I used 36 mines to make 1 steam engine one time. 1 steam engine took 36 mines to make. I was like, okay, well, I have 36 here. Okay, we'll grab the metal from those and we'll smelt it over there, and then that'll make that steam engine. Okay, and then we got that. And then, so I had to pool my resources to make 1 epically big steam engine for something. I forget what. But anyway, though, you know, that was my life. I was just like building, and then finally I got to a point where it's like, all right, now things are easy. So anyway, and then eventually, you know, I started doing towns after I did buildings and stuff. And anyway, though, but yes, there was a city that, the first city with metal signs, had a problem. Eventually, the locals got enough metal that it wasn't a big deal. Of course, then they started selling and trading the metal with other people, so it's still the wood. Anyway, I use wood signs everywhere else except for that one city, which I kept trying to do metal signs, and it ended up being almost like being a humanitarian aid thing where they just kept replacing the metal signs, and they kept getting stolen. But eventually, they started respecting the signs a little bit, and I mean, they just finally got enough money. They started trading and stuff, and they got on their own. You know, I mean, you know, when people are trying to, you know, I mean, I was always the kind of person to reach out a hand and be like, oh, you need something? Oh, what do you need? Steam engine? All right, give it back. Save it for me or give it back. You know, I was always one of those people that you know, because I had struggled my way up to where I was. And once I struggled, you know, it took me 30 years. And I had come from the times of the old, the tribes. And so I knew how it was. And I was like, well, you don't really have to do all that. You know, we can do this the easy way. You know, and so I did that quite a few times in the past where I even loaned out my lumber mills, I loaned out my construction things. And then I was like, well, just pay a fee and then, you know, don't worry about it. Hit me back later. Give me something back later on. And a lot of you know, I got a lot of people later on, you know, whenever I needed something, you know, it'd be given or done. And so, you know, that's why when we came out of the 1800s and we get into like the 1970s and stuff, and certain people, you know, it's like they just didn't understand, and even the British people when they're trying to do stuff, I was like, just go talk to the locals and tell them about me, tell them about blah blah blah, and then they'll do it. And they're like, oh, and then it was done. You know, the locals knew all about it, and so a lot of things, you know, a lot of people, my new people that were helping, they're coming on my team, or people that I had known before, you know, or new people, you know. I mean, people that hadn't lived or were just young or whatever. Anyway, it's a random effect of me having existed for so long, and who I was. But anyway, kind of one of those weird kind of things that only I experience. So anyway, though, it worked out in the end. Anyway, so The City of Metal Signs was the title.